Kia ora, Year 12 is my last video for the night because I want to go home. I actually want to go for a walk. So I just want to go over the two-country model, which I've done lots of price taker models and not much on this. And something that I would expect you to also understand is what happens when there's only two countries trading. And this is really a fictional example where these two countries are the only two that can trade with each other. They can't go to anyone else if they, in this case, want laptops. So I'm sticking with the laptop. So imagine that New Zealand wants laptops and they can only get them from China. So this does change things, particularly when we talk about a change in supply and demand. In this model here, the two-country model, we don't talk about a price taker. These two only trade with each other, so they negotiate between them to find a price for trade. And the key idea is that you find a trade price where the shortage in New Zealand in this case, because we're a high cost producer, is going to be equal to the surplus in China. They're a low cost producer, so they're going to want a price higher than currently they have in China, and New Zealand is going to want a price lower than what we're paying in New Zealand. So we haggle and we find a price for trade. And I'm just going to draw it in quickly. I don't know if I'm going to get this right exactly, but let's just say it's here. I'm just randomly drawing it. It's not too bad. Okay, it's just where it's the triangles. When I say triangles, what I'm meaning is see here when the price falls in New Zealand, and I'll call it PT, the quantity supplied in New Zealand will fall because it's less profitable to produce them, while the quantity demanded in New Zealand will increase. So we'll just call it N for NZ. So we have a shortage created between these 2 points, right? Excess demand, but it's okay because we're going to import them off the Chinese, because when they have a trade price that is above their equilibrium, the opposite happens. Local consumption decreases, but local production increases. And so they end up with a surplus, which they export to New Zealand. So hopefully that's not too radical for you. If you find that a little bit difficult, maybe you should watch one of my earlier videos when I use this model to explain the basis or the reason two countries trade. Okay, so if we kind of look at this, what I want to talk about is, okay, what happens if there is a change in demand or supply in either country? And I'm going to pick New Zealand and I'm going to say, the BYOD laptops policy that I discussed in my earlier video, and I also discussed in class briefly at the end today. What happens if there's a BYOD policy in all schools in New Zealand? All school kids need to have laptops, they need to buy one. More people are going to want laptops, therefore there's going to be more demand. So you can show this by increasing demand in New Zealand. Now, this is where it's a bit different, because in the world supply and demand model, nothing is going to change there because we're just a little country. If our demand increases, that doesn't make a big difference. But when you can only trade with one other country in the two-country model, like we only trade with China, that changes things, because with this trade price here, that was a trade price because our shortage equaled their surplus. But when the demand in New Zealand increases, what happens to our shortage? It increases. The QD was here, now it's here. So it's actually increased out here. So actually, this whole area here is in shortage. So we can't let that continue. We have to find some more laptops to meet that shortage. So we need to go back to China and say, we've got a bigger shortage. Can you fix this up? But if that's still the trade price, that's not going to work, because China's surplus is equal to this much, but now our shortage is this much. So we have to find a new price for trade that allows the two countries where our shortage is going to be equal to their surplus. So we have to renegotiate the trade price. And if you think about it, what needs to happen? Go back to your market forces. We need to reduce the New Zealand quantity demanded a bit, so we need to get that price put up. And then that makes sense, because for the Chinese to supply us more laptops, they're going to need to receive a higher price. So the two countries are going to do some haggling. I'm just going to take this off for now. Okay, and we're going to find a new price for trade. And so I might use the green pen for this. This is really quite messy. I hope you don't get asked it, but it's good to know. All right, we have to find a new price where I would be looking here. This is effectively, the pre-trade price in New Zealand now. It's gone from here to here. So we need to find a trade somewhere between here and here. All right, so I've just drawn it in, I'm just really taking a stab here. You need a ruler and stuff. But if you throw it in here, I don't know, like this, maybe a bit lower. That's like really big. Okay, if we call that PT, what I'll be looking for is a new trade price, where that's a little bit off, but New Zealand's shortage is going to be equal to China's surplus. All right, and so you'd have to redraw in your quantity supplied NZ. It's going to increase if the price goes up, but the demand has also increased. So, you know, we're not necessarily saying they're better off. We still will import, and we will increase the amount that we import as well. Okay, so it's going to import more, and then the amount that we get off the Chinese is going to increase. All right, this is not really drawn very well, just because I'm just drawing it freehand. But what I want you to pick up is that if you're using the two-country model for trade, and New Zealand demand increases, then that means that the trade price between the two countries needs to change. In this case, it needs to increase, because what we need to do is get more exports from China, and to do that, we're going to need to increase their quantity supplied, and to do that, we're going to need to increase the price, which is the trade price. Okay, so that's what happens when you have a two-country model, and in this case, the demand increases, the trade price needs to increase. It's the idea that whenever you've got a two-country model, there's only two countries changing. If the local conditions change, supply or demand in either country, then the trade price has to be renegotiated to find a new price where the shortage in one country is going to be equal to the surplus in the other. Okay, and this ends my videos for tonight. I hope you find them helpful, and you may ask me questions in class if you wish. Thanks.